He never used the word threat. He used the word him. The letters, dozens of them, detailed a man my father had encountered when I was just an infant. A man who had, according to my father, made a specific and chilling statement about me about my future on the day my mother brought me home from the hospital. A man who had appeared periodically through the years, always on the edges, always at a distance, always gone before my father could confront him directly. My father had spent 20 years documenting every sighting, every photograph, every license plate number, written neatly on the back of each photo. He had never gone to the police because he had no crime to report, only a feeling, and a pattern, and a father's instinct that would not let him rest. The last letter in the box was dated 3 weeks before he died. "I think it's over," he wrote. "I haven't seen him in 2 years. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just a frightened man who loved his son too much and saw shadows where there were none. I've decided to stop. I'm going to close this cupboard and let it go. You were never supposed to know any of this. I never wanted you to carry what I carried. That was always mine to bear, not yours." I sat on that floor until sunrise. When the light finally came through the window at the end of the hallway, I looked again at the padlock, the one that had been open when I arrived. The one my father had locked every day of his life. I thought about what my father's neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, had mentioned at the store a week earlier, just in passing, that she'd seen a car parked at the end of my father's road the night before he was taken to the hospital. An older model, dark blue. She hadn't thought anything of it. I thought about the nurse's words again. He kept saying it over and over. My father was not a man who repeated himself. He was not a man who panicked. For him to use his last breath on a warning meant that in his final moments, surrounded by machines and strangers, his only thought was to protect me. I took every box, every letter, every photograph. I drove to the county sheriff's office when it opened at 8 o'clock, and I laid it all out on the desk of a detective named Harris, a quiet, careful man who listened without interrupting. He looked through the license plates. He made a phone call. He asked me to wait. 40 minutes later, he came back into the room with a look on his face that told me everything before he spoke. One of the license plates from a photo dated 6 years ago came back registered to a man who had been arrested 18 months earlier in a neighboring county. The charges were serious. The case was ongoing. The detective said he couldn't tell me everything, but he said this: "Your father may have been documenting something very real." I never found out who the man was. The detective asked me not to search for him, for my own safety and for the integrity of the case. I was asked to provide everything, which I did, and then I was asked to go home and live my life. So I did. But here is what stayed with me, what stays with me still, every single day. My father never told me. He carried it alone for over 2 decades. He woke up every morning with it, went to bed every night with it, smiled at me across dinner tables with it sitting behind his eyes, drove to my son's baseball games with it riding in the passenger seat. And he did all of that every single quiet, ordinary day of his life so that I would never have to. That padlock was never about keeping me out. It was about keeping something else in every fear, every worry, every dark and watchful night locked away, so that my life could stay full of light. The morning after I read those letters, my son came downstairs before school, dropped his backpack on the kitchen floor, and said, "Dad, can you make pancakes?" And I stood there at the stove, spatula in hand, and I thought about my father standing at his own stove 30 years ago, making my pancakes, watching me eat, and never once letting me see what he was carrying. I made the pancakes. I didn't say anything, but I understood, for the first time in my life, what it truly means to love someone. The heaviest thing a person can carry is a secret kept not out of shame, but out of love.